Yo.
We streaming right now. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
That's it. The bridge is over. The bridge is over. Bye-bye. The bridge is over.
All right, everybody. Good evening tonight. Welcome to the
Good evening.
first edition of Coffee for Your Soul. We have a full slate tonight. It's not even a game tonight. We got what's really going on with our first segment with Mark Joseph, Wes Wilson, and Lewis Lubin. And I'm here joined with my host, Maxim Mangus, aka Black Maxim, and Dimitri Giroux, aka Avalanche. And I'm John Frazier, also known as Snake Eyes. So at this time, fellas, before we start to have a good night, thank you everybody that's joining us tonight. We appreciate you. And as we go forward, if you have any questions, feel free to shoot them out. I'll see them, I'll post them, and we can go from there. But I ask one thing before we start tonight. If we can have an opportunity for Lewis to lead us in a prayer before we start the game tonight. So Lewis, please join us and start us with a prayer.
All right, I got you. Everybody bow your heads real quick. Father God, we just want to thank you for this opportunity for us to come together as intellectuals, as Black men, Black women, as professionals, as we come together and try to make sense of what's going on in the world today, Lord. We ask you to remember George Floyd and his family, Lord. Please give them the peace and the comfort that they're going to need to get through these dark days. But it's not just only George Floyd that we are worried about. There are so many others that are being victimized in this country. And we ask that you also continue to think about them and their families and give them comfort, Lord. Lord, we're here to have an open conversation about things that need to be talked about, things that need to be shared, things that need to be discussed, Lord. We ask you that you allow us to have an open mind, have an open heart, and those who are paying attention and listening to us tonight and on future nights to also have an open mind and an open heart so that we can learn a little bit more about our brother who is beside us, regardless of what their race and what their creed is. We ask you these blessings and all blessings in your son's name. Amen.
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 Amen. So thank you, brother. Thank you. So fellas. I'm gonna I want to start this with what's really going on, current state events. As you know, there's a lot going on in our country. And we need to talk about it. We need to get it off our chests. People are hurting. And we're going to talk about trauma in our next segment with Shelly Fan, Douglas Lawson, and Roxanne Talbot. We're going to talk about that. But today we're going to talk about current events. Tell me, fellas, what y'all thinking? What y'all feeling? Speak it out. What you thinking about? I'm going to start off with Mr. Wes Wilson. Where are you hitting? Where you feeling, brother?
Hey, first I just want to say thanks, for all you guys getting together, inviting me on this platform right here to express myself and how I'm feeling about, what's going on in this current climate of, police brutality and just looking like it's a racial war kind of still going on out here in these streets. And we're in 2020, we thought we would be way past this by now, right? But it still kind of keeps resurfacing every once in a while to kind of remind us that it hasn't gone away. And, I feel like a little bit of anger, a little bit of sadness, frustration.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
I just have a ball of emotions going on right now.
Thank you, brother. Thank you very much, brother. Mr. Lubin, how are you feeling, brother?
Well, it's a tough time. I have 3 kids. My daughter, she's 20, my son is 17, and then my youngest daughter is 10. So there's obviously a lot to discuss in our house, a lot for me to explain, especially to my young one, because she just, she's having a hard time understanding. What's going on is not new. It's not new. This has been happening for years. It's been happening for decades. It's been happening for generations. I think Will Smith said it. Now we're just in an age where it's being recorded. So now it's going to be more difficult for racism to hide its face and to work in the shadows. And I think that we just got to do our part to make sure that we bring it to light. We have the uncomfortable conversations that maybe some people don't want to have, but we got to have them anyway. That's the only way that we're going to try to, to root this out.
Okay, thank you very much, brother. Mr. Joseph.
Yes, sir. So I'm optimistic, brother. I'm optimistic. I think what we have here is ample opportunity. We have 50 states and over 18 countries that are watching us right now. I heard that some of the protesters out there, their white counterparts were coming up to them, asking them, "What do we do? What do you want us to do? Where should we go?" That's what the world's looking at us for right now. We have to think about what's next.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so my feeling is of optimism. I think that this Band-Aid had to be ripped off, and it's ripped wide open right now. The sores are everyone's looking at us.
Yeah.
So this is the opportunity, and I think that we can't pass this up. We have to take the bull by the horns, and let's do this.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. Mr. Max, how you feeling, brother?
Yeah, I'm commenting and what they're adding to the conversation in terms of I like to hear optimism. I feel that, but I'm very tepid with my optimism at the same time, because as we've all seen, there's a lot of subterfuge going on with these things. There's a lot of funny actors putting themselves into it that aren't genuine participants of the vibe and the movement. So be mindful, be wary, because I'm seeing a lot of exuberance, but it's misdirected. And when I say that, I'm talking about our white brothers and sisters. A lot of them are standing with us as they have in the past. Let's not forget this. But at the same token, I am concerned about all of the bad actors we've been seeing. Wes was mentioning the bricks on the corners of the streets. We all got IG. We all got a link that's been sent to us about 10 times now of someone having to rip a skateboard out of a. So people are taking advantage. They think it's the purge. It's entertainment. They're not feeling it from the standpoint that we as Black men and Black people feel it from. And that's not to say that our brothers and sisters who are not Black can't sympathize with us, and maybe even empathize in some ways. But we just have to be mindful of what's being portrayed in terms of this movement, because just that quickly it can evaporate. Remember, this country has the attention span of a 2-year-old child. November's a long time away. So and enough of a picture of shenanigans and hijinks and oh, look at them go, look at these guys go. It's there's that's fodder for a certain demographic out there that absolutely has no problem with knees on necks. Just saying.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Dimitri, aka Avalanche. How you
What's
feeling,
going on,
brother?
gentlemen? What's going on? My bad. I had some audio difficulties. I had to clear up, so everything's good now. Everything's good. Everything's good. First, I want to say I'm excited that the arrests were finally made. It seemed like people were like, I've seen comments of, should we bring the military in to stop the protests and stop the riots? What should we do to stop the riots? It was pretty obvious to me what we had to do as a nation to stop the riots, make the arrest. There was plenty of evidence to make the arrest. We had witnesses there, it was on video. The chief fired the officers, so right away the next day admitting wrongdoing. So I just don't understand why I had to take this long for an arrest to be made. But now that the arrests are made, that's a good thing. It's crazy that I had to take this much for an arrest to be made, and this is the thing that we and as I don't want to say Black or white people, man, because I think this is the point where we're about to transition to where a man is a man and that's it. A woman is a woman and that's it. And I think we're starting to get to that transition A lot of the protesters are young people. These souls are crossing that barrier that took our ancestors forever to cross, and they get it. And it's obvious that they get it. So you know, it's good that the arrests were made. So that's my 2 cents on the arrest. And I'm glad that we got that taken care of and out of the way.
Yeah. Thank you very much, brother. Did everybody speak already?
Yep.
I think everybody did.
Yes, sir.
So I've been watching, getting motivated for this type of night. We need to have the opportunity where Black people have the opportunity to talk about the challenges, things that we want to see. And the one thing you're going to see from Coffee for Your Soul is going to be different topics every week. Next week is going to be something smooth with education, followed by Black empowerment and real estate and things like that of that nature. And I want this to be a common block. I want this is not the barbershop. There's no haircut because Mark and I, myself, Lou, actually everybody on this call is bald except Max. So it is what it is. But it's an opportunity for us to speak like this. But
coming to America.
So, but it pains me every morning when I walk up and think about watching my 2 boys grow up, learn, and the same conversations that our fathers all had with us, we still have to have that conversation. Nothing has changed. What can we do in our community to do more and have a voice? Because a topic that has come up is like, where's all the leaders? Where's everybody speaking? We know number 45 don't speak for us. So everybody else, what do we need to do? So I'm going to pass it back to you, Mark. What can we do better?
So I think it's a couple different things. So number one, we have to be a leader in our own house. We have to be able to step up in our own house and understand that this is our level of control, and we have to be able to protect our house. So I think it's the responsibility of every man and woman to get their license to carry. You don't have to buy a firearm. If you're afraid of firearms, I understand, but I think it's the responsible thing to actually have a license that if by chance you need to carry, that you are already prepared to carry. So I think that's one step. When it comes about leadership in the Black community, I think that we have to agree on the code. We have to agree on where are we leading ourselves to. That's been one thing that I think that we can't necessarily agree on the approach. We all know where we want to be, but the approach is the difficult part. So I think that's really the second step. And of course, the third step is keeping the conversation going. I've seen something on Facebook, on social media, and it's kind of like that cancel culture. If somebody disagrees with you, you stop the conversation, you block them. And it doesn't matter if they're Black or white, especially right now. If someone says something that makes you uncomfortable, your instinct is to block. No. This is the opportunity to talk. This is the opportunity to understand one another. It may be uncomfortable, but it's the conversation that needs to happen right now. And I would challenge you guys that when you're having those conversations, seek understanding. It's very easy to be in our rightful stance because we know what's right and we know what's wrong, but seek understanding and try to understand the perspective of the other, whether they're Black, white, doesn't matter. So that's my 3 cents, man.
Thank you, brother. Thank you very much, brother. Max, what's your thoughts? What can we do better?
No, I mean, I think the whole point of this conversation that we're having, communication, and to Mark's point, yeah, it is easy for us as Black men who have made it to adulthood, right? Let's be serious. It's easy to stand and be accusatory or be in our feelings or justifiably. But to Mark's point, I agree. You know, we need to make sure we're having conversations though with our white brothers and sisters. And I call them my white brothers and sisters. It's what they are, right? We all come from Africa. Get over it. Science, evolution, know it. We one people. We'll be one people again. It may take another 1,000 years, 10,000 years, who knows? But for instance, today at work, because I'm a manager at a major shipping company. Let me just leave it there. And I had a vendor come in from Pennsylvania, a white fellow. And, we were kind of just chit-chatting through the day. And once the project was done, he's in my office and, of course, comes up, oh, what's going on? It's crazy. I'm like, yeah, it's crazy times. It's crazy what they did to that guy. He didn't deserve that. I said, yeah, I agree. I was like, all right, he's starting okay with me, man. Then he said, man, but the looting, man, what's going on in the neighborhoods, man? They're destroying their own neighborhoods. Why are they doing that? And that's always the go-to. That's the image. That's what the media is showing you. That's what, IG's kind of countering and Facebook. And thank God for, social media to make sure not everything's tainted. But, instead of being maybe my usual self and getting on them, I actually said, well, because he said, because he finished it by saying, I think it's the Democrats that are causing all this stuff. Sorry, here we go. So I said, you know what? I'm independent. I have some conservative leanings, very much so, and I'm very tolerant and have an open mind in other ways. And I was like, but left wing, right wing, same crooked bird. And what he did at that point, when I said that, I saw that I got through to him. And he was like, okay, that's not what I was expecting from this guy. So I say all that to say we need to have, and I just met this guy today for the first time, and I don't really talk to people if I don't have to, but I'm like, you know what? We're going to do this. Let's do this. So we have to have uncomfortable conversations. We have to put our white brothers and sisters and our Latino brothers and sisters and Asian and Eskimo and everything else. We have to have uncomfortable conversations to get past the elephant in the room, which are the realities that people don't want to speak towards. But you can't get past them if you don't acknowledge them. So I challenge everybody who's listening, everybody who's watching, have those uncomfortable conversations and keep it uncomfortable, keep it awkward, because you'd be surprised. You rub it down enough, then people are saying, you know what, the other week, I didn't want to say anything, but, here's my feelings. And that's the only way we get past any of this. We got to talk. The peaceful protests ain't working because they kill all the leaders. The looting, I detest thieves. I'm going to be honest with you. As much as I get it, I feel it in the anger out there. And moreover, it's not even us doing all the looting.
Sure.
That's the picture being painted.
True.
Anyway, I'll talk your ear off. I'll pass the mic.
Go, Mr. Lubin.
What can we do better? I'm gonna start with you got to go vote. You got to go vote. Obama's first term, we came out and we voted in record numbers. The possibility of having a black president for the first time galvanized an entire nation, right? So, but now, as we stand today, it's got to be more than that. It's got to be more than just those. We're looking for the first time this. We're looking for the first time this. We have to really look at what we need to do for sustainability, to sustain our lives. We need to be able to vote the right people in office at your local level. Who are you going to vote in as your sheriff, your commissioners, the judges? These are the things that we need to look at as we work all the way up to, senators, congresspeople, governor, president, all of those at every single level. We've got to get people out to vote. And if we can do that, and obviously I believe that because of the State of the Union at this time, you're going to see that this November, you know what I mean? But who said it? I think Mark said it. America has the attention span of a 2-year-old. So you got to be careful. You just can't rely on or just, rest on the fact that, we'll get there in November. We got to push it. We got to push it. We got to push it. We got to push our people, because you know what? There's a lot of hype. There's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of energy, and I love it. But are we going to have that same energy next month? Are we going to have that same focus and that energy in August? Are we going to have it in September when football season comes around and people start thinking about their colleges and people start thinking about their homecomings and all these other things that can sometimes distract us from the long game? So we need to make sure that we're getting ourselves registered to vote, and we are becoming intelligent. Some people just go to the voting booth just the day of without actually reading the ballot. They don't even realize what they're voting on, anything lower than the president or the governor. And so we need to improve on that aspect. Understand exactly where you live, what the demographics are, and who are the ones that are in control and wielding the power in your community. I'm talking about a mile up your street, a mile down your street. You got to understand your own neighborhood first before you can branch out and really start focusing on all of that. That's the big thing that we need to improve on.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Lewin. Mr. Ab, I'm going to switch to Wes because we have about 3 minutes left. So, Wes, you hit it. What's your last thoughts process of what's going on and what we can do better?
Yeah, everything you guys said already, is definitely what we need to do to get the movement going in the right direction. We have to get the right people in that's representing us locally so that they know what the issues are that we're really facing in our community. We also need to, take a better control on how we're educating our youth. Let's not just send them to school and rely on the teachers to educate them. What they're learning in the book, we already know it's lies in there, right? So the history that they're learning is not the right history. We got to take control on telling our own history so that our youth know, like, we come from kings and queens, a lineage of intelligent people, scientists, you name it. There's a Black person at the top that's running it somehow. That we have the knowledge, we have the intelligence. Now let's just try to control the story that's being told about us, and we could unify, a lot better.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, I'm going to just say thank you very much, gentlemen, for really, this is the first session. It's the first time. We're going to have multiple conversations. I love each and every one of you to death. I appreciate you doing this. I hope, any feedback, thought process to make this better, get that platform. We had a high of 35 thus far. So this is great. That means people are listening, people are caring, people want to be involved. So I just want to say thank you very much. So I'm going to say thank you very much to Mark Joseph.
Welcome.
Thank you very much, Louis Lubin. Thank you very much, Mr. Wes Wilson. Thank you very much. All right.
You're welcome. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Keep the conversation going.
Thank you very much, fellas. All right. So I'm going to bring in our next set of guests. I got Miss Roxanne. Welcome, Roxanne. Roxanne. So, all right, we're just going to miss we're missing Miss Shelley, but she'll be coming back in just a little second. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to add Mr. Christian Bolden in for a little bit until we get in, because he's sitting over here looking like he's sad. So it's okay. Okay. So, but welcome, Christian Bolden, Roxanne. We're going to start this conversation to our next level. We're going to talk about mental health. Miss Roxanne runs her own company, doing her own thing. She's a mental health superstar guru. She helps everybody. She helped me. So, but I just want to sit there and say that we're going to start. Let me reset this here again. Start. So what we're going to do here is we're going to move forward. So Roxanne, welcome. Thank you very much, Christian. Thank you for joining us for a little bit. And I want to get your opinion, Roxanne. What can we do to help our Black community and the challenges that we have right now from a mental health aspect?
So the biggest thing that we need to do is to help people recognize that they have been traumatized. I think that a lot of people just keep pushing and they just think this is normal, or I'm used to hearing gunshots, or this is what's in my community. And people have become immune to that. They think that's normal. That's what I live. And they don't understand the negative impact, the long-term impact of that being their norm. So imagine someone who doesn't have that on a regular basis now being exposed to that even more so with social media, the news platforms, their neighbors talking about it. You can't go anywhere at your job without somebody talking about it. So we have it on so many different levels. So I think the first thing we need to do is we all collectively need to understand that we are experiencing trauma and not just saying this is just what's going on, because that diminishes it. And then we can't address it if we don't acknowledge it.
Thank you very much. Ms. Shelley, I know you just jumped back in. Thank you very much for technical difficulties. But what is your thought process of what we can do to help the Black community from a mental health aspect and what trauma impacts?
Oh boy, do I have an hour?
No, you have 18 minutes between you and Roxanne.
Okay, well, one of the things that I want to talk about is trauma. And we're looking at trauma on so many different perspectives. So when we're talking about what can we do for the Black community, I want to share some things just about trauma and the experience that I've had in working with officers specifically. And I've had the priceless opportunity to do so. So I kind of see both ends. I did a live some months ago about trauma amongst police officers and how they really have no place to go. So they don't feel empowered to share when they need some time off, when they're struggling, when they're not getting sleep, when they're having nightmares over a situation that happened. They are being expected just to continue to swallow, to cope, and to move forward. I talked to an officer once that said if she would ever share that she's having nightmares and feeling some depression and anxiety, that the first thing that she would have to do is turn in her weapon. And there's so much power, there's so much just wrapped in just the idea of giving up your weapon, and just how many power and control issues are just associated just with that, right? But what she was saying was, I'm not empowered. There is no safe space for me to go to say, this is what I'm experiencing. And what happens with that is that we are trusting individuals to police our communities who have their own mental health issues that are not addressed. And so we're looking at the trigger happy response. That's a trauma response. A trauma response is when your brain goes into fight or flight mode, and in that your logical thinking is suppressed, your emotional centers of your brain are activated. And when the emotional centers of your brain are activated, you are no longer thinking. You're not thinking consequentially. You're not thinking about the training, your boot camp, or whatever. You're thinking about survival. And so a lot of what we have seen, and maybe not necessarily in this last case, but a lot of what we've heard is that trigger response, that trauma response. Well, guess what? Guess who else has trauma besides the police officers? Our African-American community. And so as a licensed psychotherapist, I had the uncommon privilege to work with officers for them to understand how to handle the mentally ill during an arrest or when they step up to the scene. So we let them know that someone who has schizophrenia, who is hearing 1,000 voices in addition to yours, may not just stop. When they say do not move or freeze, they may not freeze. Why? Because there are 1,000 other voices happening in their head. They're decompensated. They're not stable. They may not comply with your directives. And so we're teaching them these things so officers understand how to deal with their symptomology. Well, guess what? Post-trauma is a mental illness. This is an emotional issue. And so we have Black men that are falling into this fight or flight mode when they are interacting with these police officers. Why? Why do they go to their trauma brain? Why do they access their survival brain? Because they have learned that police officers are not safe. Whether it's true or not, it's their reality, it's their perception, it's their schema. And so we're seeing what people are referring to as non-compliance or resisting arrest. And what I'm seeing as a psychotherapist is someone operating in their trauma brain. Trauma brain causes you to do what? Fight to protect myself or flee. Just as we saw that gentleman who ran away, and what did he get? 4 to 8 shots in his back. And so we are seeing manifestations of trauma, and we have to be able to recognize it as such. Stop calling it non-compliance or street behavior or thug behavior. We are traumatized. People are traumatized, and when they are coming into interactions with officers, they are perceiving danger only. And when we perceive danger, our brain goes to protection, and that is that fight or flight response that I was talking about. And we have to be able to educate our officers about that fight or flight response, the true trauma that our community members are suffering from, so they are able to better deal with it, just as we expect them to deal with that autistic child or to deal with that autistic adult in a way that's safe, in a way that takes into consideration their unique needs. Is the same way we now have to educate police officers about the trauma that our community has suffered and the unique needs that we now have when we come into contact with them.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Roxanne, you want to add any more to that?
Yeah, so she mentioned police officers and the individuals in the community. And because my training is mental health and marriage and family, I have to deal with everyone in the home. So I think it's also good to understand that when that person who goes out and has his trauma response comes home, that's transmitted down to his spouse, his partner, his mama, his child, because they're teaching them that this is what you do. And we can never understand why is it that someone who's never had a true trauma, I'm gonna put that in quotes, true trauma is responding that way. It's because you're passing on those are your survival tips, and you're passing it on to your children. So as you were saying previously, we need to teach our children because they're not learning a lot of things that they should in school. We should also be, literally, I just think the whole family needs to just come into the office, because you fix one, but you can't fix the entire system that they exist in. So it's not just the police system, it's not just an individual system, it's our collective humanity that needs some help with this trauma response.
Awesome. Dimitri?
I have a quick comment in regards to the trauma and the mental health part of the conversation. The officers have a very high stress job. We know that. How many times you've heard people say, I would never be a cop, because I have, you'd have to go. You have to go. The people, our first responders on all level are in a heroic career. Okay, but because your career is heroic or respected by everyone at a high value, and we respect the people who are first responders. That doesn't change the fact that when someone is traumatized and has mental health issues, I feel it is the department's obligation to make sure that they are hiring, women like you guys to talk to their officers on a regular basis. Don't wait for a shooting. Don't wait for any of that. Like you said, the officer being afraid that she might have to turn in her weapon. We forget that these people are human, and I understand that part of the argument. I really do. However, I think the discussion for George Floyd and what's been happening is that when trauma is the result, when death is the result of someone's trauma or mental health, they still have to be held responsible. Maybe with not such a heavy hammer, with that being, with all that being considered, the situation, how stressful it was, we have to consider all of the above. However, we can't just not charge people when they need to be charged. And I feel that, mental health, yes, it's important on both sides. But the arrests have to be made. I feel if these arrests were made, we wouldn't even be having this discussion like this. That's what caused the uproar. And you talk about trauma. Our society has been traumatized. Look how many people get killed by police officers, and the police are not held accountable. It's a significant number. They just are they should be held to a higher standard, and they're exempt. Like no one wants to prosecute a first responder, but if they're wrong, they're wrong, So yeah, mental health is important, but we need to focus on the justice system being able to hold their own accountable.
Thank you. So we have, hold on, Shelly. We have a question that just come through, and I want to make sure that we're clear. So a PMG Hustle Woman asked question: do trauma responses only occur with obedience situations? Roxanne, I'll let you start first.
No. So I'm going to say this, that sometimes you're not even aware of your trauma response. As Shelly was saying, it just kicks in and you don't even know it. And so when I've trained my patients, because I treat acutely ill patients, when I trained them, I said, I need you to start recognizing some things that led up to it, because in the moment, it could very much happen. It could be a simple song. It could be the way the wind blows. If it's connected to something, it does not have to be where someone is in your face telling you to comply. The trigger for anyone could be so many different things. It just depends on what the initial trauma was. So it doesn't matter if it's a gun. I could close my laptop too loud and somebody could have a moment from it because it connects to something. So it's not necessarily about those kinds of situations with law enforcement or something like that.
I definitely agree with that. It's not only in obedience situations, it's anytime someone perceives a threat. That's when your trauma response kicks in. And just as she said, it can, most of the time, it's very automatic. And these are reactions to perceiving a threat, that your life is in danger. And so when we're looking at these situations, just a regular traffic stop can be traumatic for someone. Someone can feel like their life is in danger just as a result of that traffic stop. And this is why. What we are seeing is something called secondary trauma. And I want to address Avalanche in just a second. So secondary trauma basically means that as a result of repeated exposure of the victimization of someone else, that you now have the same symptomology of post-traumatic stress disorder or just general traumatic stress. There are things that can determine the probability that you will experience traumatic stress. And while there are many, I'm going to talk about two. Number one, the similarities in the characteristics of the victim. I want you to think about this. The similarities of the characteristics of the victim. So we're talking about socioeconomic status, race, other demographics. And so when we're seeing that there's a Black man who was jogging innocently and was murdered, then we're looking at whoever has similar characteristics to that victim has a higher chance of experiencing traumatic stress. The second factor is, what are the chances that this can happen to you? What are the chances that this can happen to me? So when we think about that, oh my God, what are the chances that during a traffic stop, it can go all wrong? We're perceiving that as the probability being what? Quite high. What's the probability that you will go jogging in a predominantly white neighborhood? That probability is what? Quite high. So when we're looking at these characteristics, these people look like us, they talk like us, they're living certain lives as us, or the probability of that happening to us is high, then we are collectively experiencing trauma. And so a lot of what we are seeing, especially on social media, people are really lashing out. That's a defense mechanism to trauma. That's using aggression to relieve yourself of distress. People who are just totally avoiding. There are people that don't even watch the news.
I know that.
Completely escape avoiding. That is a response. That is trying to relieve myself of distress through escape and avoidance. One last thing, I promise. Avalanche.
Yes.
You talked about the focus needs to be on justice and holding people accountable, and I completely agree. I want to say this and I'll shut up. Most issues are not singular or linear. They are systemic. And so if we are looking to truly see change and progress, we have to find the infections in the entire system. So when I say that police officers experience their own trauma and we're seeing trauma responses based on unresolved trauma, I'm not in any way, shape, or form saying that they should be acquitted as a result. but it's important for us to understand. See,
Right.
sympathy, we don't need sympathy right now. I don't need anybody's sympathy because sympathy is birthed out of emotion, but empathy is birthed out of understanding. And we cannot overcome what we do not understand. We cannot overcome what we do not understand. So we got to educate ourselves. We have to understand our plight. We have to understand the plight of the officers, how our system doesn't really support them getting the help that they need. The system doesn't support them getting the training that they need. And so again, my role, my intention in that was to provide new information that enhances and enlarges our empathy, because change will only be birthed out of understanding, not sympathy.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm going to piggyback from that because I'm going to segue that from the trauma.
And Max,
How
we
quick?
have 3 minutes. Just
3 minutes, real quick. I'll do my best.
3 minutes.
So
Yep.
I want everyone out there to realize, stay off of the news and just watching the propaganda of Trump and all of this BS. What's happening is they're lining these courts with judges that are going to be in place for decades, that are going to change how your everyday life is affected. Look at Jeff Sessions. After Obama, who I wasn't, I have feelings about Obama both ways. He wasn't the greatest, he wasn't the worst, right? But he put in place some steps to reform police training, to reform, training in the police departments, that they learn to be more about de-escalation than aggression. First thing Trump and Sessions do is wipe all that out. Why? Because it's got the name Obama on it, because we know that helped with COVID, right? But that's the reality. All you people out there upset in the streets, y'all better go vote. I don't care what you think about, it's a conspiracy, the government. Yeah, maybe it is. I don't know all the things government did. But you better get your ass out and vote, because if you don't be mad when you're sitting on a train going somewhere, wonder how this happened again. You better check your history and let it affect your future. Go vote, because I tell you what, Biden ain't my favorite. The guy could barely hold a thought. I like what's going on here. But this other guy, the guy calling people shithole country. He's saying Nazis are good people. Don't get me started on Attorney General Barr. Go vote. Vote for lesser of two evils. Get over it. That's where this country's at. But don't sit your ass down. You want to walk in the street? Walk your ass to the booth. That's all I'm saying.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Thank you very much. So thank you very much, Matt. So I just want to make sure that Roxanne is representing Pivotal Spaces Coaching and Consulting. And Shelly Fan is representing AskShelly.com. Now, I don't need to know that many mental health people, because I'm just freaking crazy. They already know it. But I'm in a situation where I love these ladies to death. Like, these are two people that I respect, and if I'm gonna have a show, they're gonna be there for me. Time in, time out, no questions. And I thank you very, very much for the time. Before we let you guys go, Shelly, I'll let you close it out, and then Roxanne, anything last things to add before we depart?
Okay.
Well, I just want to just encourage everyone to take responsibility for transitioning your emotional reactions to emotional responses. And those are two different things, because when you respond to something, you are exercising control, you're exercising your power, you are exercising the authority that God has each and every one of us. We are kings and we are queens walking this earth. And so animals react. It's okay to react, but I'm just letting you know, animals are reactive. And so what separates us from that? Our ability to use our intellect and our wisdom to produce change. We all have the capacity to influence outcomes in the earth. All of us. We all have the capacity to influence outcomes in the earth. So when you're done venting and done reacting, let's turn those reactions to responses and put your passion into action. And that's the only way change will truly come.
Yes.
100%.
Thank you very much, Shelly. Roxanne, you got something to add before we go?
Yes, the biggest thing that you can do to counteract shame is to acknowledge it. Please don't be ashamed of needing mental health treatment, man, woman, and child. So if you are worried about your auntie or whomever is going to say something about you, always remember that their comment is more about them and not you. So get your help.
You heard that, John?
Thank you.
I'm joking. I kid.
I love you. I knew it was coming sooner or later. I love you. So I'm gonna Shelly, Roxanne, I'm gonna drop you guys out. Christian, you'll stay. I love you guys.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it
so much. Appreciate it.
For educating.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Hold on. And then we're gonna bring in Mr. Hendricks. We're gonna bring in Mr. Brown. All right. So, as you know, we are in the home stretch. 15 minutes. And if whatever happens after, it's going to the after party. So, this is gonna be a point of closing it out. I wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to close it out with three people that I love to death as well. Respect. 3 different fields. We have Mr. Lamont Brown, who's an officer of the law in the District of Columbia. He is also my frat brother. I got Beon Hendricks. Beon's my frat brother, entrepreneur, Selakai.com. This is what he does. And Mr. Christian Bolden. Mr. Christian Bolden is my brother. I met for 3 years from Syracuse University. He's my MBA classmate. He is from New Orleans. He just created his own podcast called The Composite, so please check that out. So the last round, it's going to be free flow, open opportunity. I'm going to give it to Lamont first, and kind of talk about what your thoughts as a police officer for District of Columbia, and how your thought process is going on here. So feel free to jump in, my brother.
Again, brother, thank you for the opportunity to join you on this much needed discussion. My outlook, and it's my outlook only, is that it was a tragedy that did not have to occur at all. Especially talking about the Brother Floyd's unfortunate demise. I basically think that it's the lack of training when it comes to police departments across the country, or the lack of continued training. I'm not going to say lack of training, the lack of continued training. Me as a Black officer, as a Black man, raising a Black son, I'm still a threat. The only difference between myself and another brother is that I have a badge. I'm authorized to carry my weapon. I'm authorized to shoot to stop the threat. That's the only difference. But outside of that badge, I am still one of them, one of us. End of discussion.
Thank you very much, brother. Mr. Hendricks, would you like to add?
Yeah.
From your thought process, situation where we're at right now, brother.
Thank you. Appreciate the platform, and thank you for putting this together, because it's something important for us to be able to talk about and share ideas and come up with plans on how to move forward. I must say that the last few days, or probably longer than that, I was stressed. Right, I was, I didn't know how to respond, and I think Shelly touched on it when you talk about the emotional reaction that you have up front. We're all human, we're all animals. We are going to react. But then what to do to go forward was what I was trying to think about. And I had no idea. And I was like, how do you fix something like this? And I'm not gonna lie, President Obama's address today, I appreciated it. First of all, somebody that can put together a coherent sentence was important to me. And but then it gave me a little bit of, it gave me hope. And it gave me a bit of relief, or clarity, actually. Clarity during a time of pain and confusion, right? But what it all ended in is that he presented a logical plan, a starting point, at least. But it is something that we can move forward with, and it can be improved. And John, people like you and I are going to be the heroes, because what it all boils down to is like a process consultant, right? And what President Obama was explaining is that they've been looking at the data. They've been collecting data from quite some time, and even beyond, after the time that he implemented some of those programs that I think, Max, you mentioned. And you could make certain changes to continually improve, small step improvements to start going to a point that we reduce the incidents, right? So I find that finding that root cause and looking at the process, looking at all of the systemic controls that are in place that facilitate this environment that we're in, I feel like that's going to be critical. You know, it's not the only part of the plan, but it's going to be critical. And I'll let some other people talk for a bit, and I'm gonna come back to another point that's related to this too.
Mr. Bolin, hit it up.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Clearly.
Yeah.
Oh,
Loud and
excellent,
clear, brother.
excellent, perfect. So, I'm really excited about the opportunity for change, because I think there are a couple things that distinguish this particular instance with regard to George Floyd from some of the other examples that we've seen. I think there's some social components that I really think contributed to kind of this explosion on the part of every major city in this country, right? I think the first thing is just the anemic COVID-19 response on behalf of the administration. I think contributed to this. I think the economic status of the country is a significant contributor. Guys, we're knocking on the door of a 20% unemployment rate. That's 1 in 5 people being unemployed. So the economic state of the country, I really think, contributes massively to the kind of the gumbo or the stew that made that started this uprising. Social distancing, obviously, that kind of social component contributes as well. So there's an angst amongst people anyway. I think what made this different, and I was having this conversation with my wife along with some other friends who were kind of reaching out to me saying kind of what's different about this. I think that people are unemployed, that COVID-19 has people under a lot of stress. Mind you, we don't even have there's no vaccine in sight, right? So we're still kind of dealing with that.
Keep that. Sorry.
that people that people are experiencing anxiety as a result of the social distancing. But I think what was different this time is 2 things. I think number one, everybody's paying attention to the phone and to their TV. So you're not really moving on right now because of this unemployment and people having to sit down and being at home. They don't really have activities or anything to maybe distract them from what's going on socially. So there's that. But I think the stark difference this time is on one front, you had this actually wasn't a gentleman who was gunned down, right? So it's not a snap judgment where you say, oh, I felt threatened. I was put in a position where I had to make a snap judgment and I shot him, right? The knee was on the neck for several minutes, right? So that's important to note because as you're watching this, you're thinking, well, at any point, as we're watching the life leave our brother George Floyd, at any point you could take your knee off his neck and this could be over. You know what I mean? I think when we were watching that all the time, we're like, how about now? Okay, how about now? Wait, how about now? Not yet. How about now? So I think that's important to note because I think when people see that, I think that is what distinguishes this from a lot of the other circumstances. The other thing is he was cuffed, right? So he had been subdued already. He had been arrested already. So this isn't a situation where we have the out clause where they say, well, you know, he was resisting arrest and we were trying to subdue him and we couldn't. He was subdued at that point. So as far as everyone's concerned, you're looking at this and you're saying, there is no excuse for this one. It's easy to let the foot off his neck, right? And Lamont, you're a police officer, so you understand how these procedures go better than anyone. Is that at any point he could have left his foot off the neck, and we're not having this discussion at all. So I think these social conditions, that is the America currently, coupled with the video going viral, us witnessing a man lose his murder slowly, which is a lot different from that snap judgment where you say, I was in a moment I'd like to have back, but I made the decision based upon whatever set of factors. Not this time, man. Not this time. So I'm really excited that we get to look at this. Unfortunate, obviously, the loss of our brother George Floyd, but I'm really excited about what this moment could represent because everybody saw the same thing. My hope is that we people who are advocates of this moment, people who are involved, people who are offended, people who want to see a change, people who want to move forward. I think the biggest challenge you're going to have, and the one that I'm finding to be is the distraction that the looting gives, that the looting gives people who, again, we talked about that emotional trauma, are looking for a way maybe not to deal with this head on, right? And so I implore all my friends, anyone who's an advocate of this movement, who wants to see it move forward, who wants to see African Americans and minorities on any sort of level treated differently in this country, is that you find a way to. It's such an exhausting, to be perfectly honest, admit it to yourself. It's such an exhausting activity, right, mentally, for you to say, how am I going to express this to people? And I say, my response is quite simple, gentlemen, which is, look, those people who take advantage of our society when it's at its most fragile point, that is a casualty of the protest. That's always going to be a circumstance, right? There's always going to be somebody ill-intentioned. There's always going to be someone who takes advantage. There's always going to be an opportunist. Let's acknowledge that's jacked up, that's messed up, right? We acknowledge that, but that's not what we're here to discuss, and that misses the larger point. And so it's complicated. And I know I see you guys smiling at me because I know you're like, yo, man, I'm trying to have this discussion with you about something deeper. And here it is, we're talking about kneeling before the flag. Here it is, we're talking about the looters. Here it is, we're talking about the means by which the protests are happening. Here it is, we're talking about buildings being burned. Nobody's an advocate of a church being burned. Nobody's an advocate of companies being looted. Nobody's an advocate of that. So let's put that to the side and focus on what we're really here to discuss. And I think that's been my biggest challenge in talking with some people about this, who I think may or may not be open-minded, but are at least engaging in the discussion, is it's a constant cop to the looters. And I'm saying, guys, that's such a lazy point of view, because that's not what this is about.
Right.
Go ahead.
It's a deflection.
Let me
hold on. So I think that this whole conversation tonight has been enlightening to me. I don't know everything. I don't claim to know everything most of the time, but I appreciate everybody, because everybody comes with a perspective and different experience. And my two brothers up here, Mr. Max Angus and Dimitri Geralt, we've been in situations where, from mental to response, and dealing with police officers, dealing with situations that we did not need to be in, because I've been blessed. My folks worked hard. They'll tell you, like, I lived in Western Fort Lauderdale, Florida, one of the first Black families to be there, and going through conversations and talking discussions, coming from the conversation from Shelly and Roxanne. At 13 years old, my dad had us go to store, come back in his old car. Police thought we didn't live there. In that situation, get pulled out the car, put my cousin, rest his whole RIP, put outside the car, gun to our head, 13 years old. That's not the first experience. So when we think about mental, we think about police officers having the power to do what they want to do and have the control. I to be honest with you, without Dimitri and Max, I was a hothead back then. And in this situation, I thank those two brothers, because they've always had my back. And we've been in situations together for shit that we didn't do, just for looking the way we do. Okay? And all of us have been in that experience. And it pains me. It pains me that, and I said it before, it's like nothing has changed. And in the process of not changing, the conversations are still the same. The conversations our fathers had with us in that situation about, racism, having a conversation. We all had to talk about driving our car, how to handle a cop.
Yeah,
for sure. My cop never looked like Lamont all the time. You know what I'm saying? So you sit there and think about this, and you hear about stuff, and you cross over here, and you do this. It's tiring. Like everybody said, John, you know what I mean? Like I'm at work, I'm doing stuff to help the communications out for Black folks and how we're gonna comment on that, right? But in reality, all the stuff that we've heard here tonight from beginning to now has been inspirational to me because we've given each other we've given a platform because I want it to be talked about because a lot of stuff is being held in. Beyond and I had a very deep conversation the other day for like 45 minutes and he couldn't stop talking and he's never like that. And you have to understand that this stuff is hitting everybody. And it's not fair. It's like you come in, I was talking to Lamont earlier today. He goes, John, what's the link for the thing? They're like, oh, you didn't check my email. But all the stuff that's going on in DC, people walking through, dressed up, hooded up, that don't look like us, but putting BLM and breaking stuff because they blame us.
Talk about it.
They want to blame us. And every time they keep blaming us, it comes to that point where we're all sitting here like, you know what? That wasn't us. But everybody has a viewpoint, spotlight on us every time. I'm tired of it. I'm tired
even when you film it's not us.
You don't have. I don't expect any leader to do anything. You know who I expect? My whole entire cipher to do something about it because we have a fucking voice. Excuse my language. I wasn't supposed to curse, but we have a voice, and it's tiring because all we're doing it is tiring.
John, you're right. It is very tiring, and it's very uncomfortable when you're talking to people that, in some cases, you grew up with. In some cases, are your relatives. In some cases, are your co-workers and fellow classmates. I think we have to start asking a question that we don't ask, and that is, why do they hate us? That's what I want to know. Mm-hmm. What do you hate so much about me and people who look like me? That's what I want to know. You know what I'm saying? I want to know, what do we do to you? Because I can tell you what you did to us. I want to know what we did to you, for you to hate us so much that you can see someone, a human being, a man, get choked out with, and back to what you were saying, my brother, Christian, I think it's Christian.
Yep.
This is different because it wasn't flight or fight. It wasn't I had to react. It wasn't I was trying to get back home to my family, because I respect that. I respect you. Sometimes you have to do something in a blink of an eye, and only people who are in combat and only law enforcement understand that pressure. But not this time. And this is why this is going on for so long. And this is why they can't stop it, because everybody saw that. And anybody who can sit after watching that and tell me anything about a riot or a rioter or an agitator, you're looking for an excuse to curve this conversation. And I, for one, am not going to let no one do that on the platform that you and I share. If you don't like how I do it, you can unfriend me. That's fine. I'm not unfriending nobody. Mm-hmm. I like to know who thinks opposite of me. And I know that this is something else you got to realize, gentlemen. You can't change everybody's mind.
Not at all.
Some people don't want. I don't give a damn, bro. If you can watch that video and not just say those 4 men need to be arrested, that's it. Those 4 men need to be arrested. Then you need to check yourself. That's what you need to do.
Yep.
You need to check yourself.
Because if anybody on this thread, all 6 of us on this tile, and I'm seeing my boy, I'm gonna straight up tell you, Officer Lamont, you're gonna have to arrest me because I'm gonna hit you. I'm gonna hit that cop. I'm gonna tell you that right now.
John, hold on. So, I don't know how much time we got left or whatever.
We're gonna go over 10 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay. Then I gotta say two things. First, what you just said, John, I sat there and watched that video, and the whole time I was like, "Come on, somebody do something, come on!" Right. Then I started saying to myself, "Damn, would I do something?" And I'm gonna go back to the conversation you and I had, John. Somebody told me that middle class is the new slavery, not poverty is the new slavery. Middle class is the new slavery. Why? Because you got a little bit. There you go. Now you ain't gonna want to give up that little bit. So I'm gonna sit there and I'm gonna be like, damn, I want to help him for my kids, my house. Right. Damn, I got my own business right now. We doing good. Damn, if the moment I decide to cross that line and help him, I'm gonna either die or be in jail or something. You know what I mean? So that having a little bit, it makes you hesitant to take the step to do what Malcolm or Martin or anyone that preceded us would have done. And I'm going to rush out of that topic and go into something else really quick, just to give everybody else a chance to say something. But going back to that systemic controls that are in place, I don't care about why you hate us no more, right? I care about how to stop it. And like you said, Dimitri, you can't change their mind. So we have to have the systemic controls in place to create some of that change. For example, if you ever heard of police brutality bonds. Police brutality bonds are purchased by cities because they already know that there's going to be police brutality and they already have a budget for it. And if they exceed the budget, they purchase these bonds that they then have to pay back, and then they're going to pay back interest. So I'll tell you right now, Chicago, 2017 allocated $225 million for settlements and judgments. They pay 7.045% interest over 12 and a half years. So extra 80 million on the cost of the settlements themselves, right? But who paying for that? The taxpayers pay for it, right? So if the police don't have to, and Lamont, I'm sorry, tell me how you feel about this after this too, but I'm gonna talk to you about this. If the police don't feel no accountability, because I ain't got paid for this shit, and all black people gonna do is protest a little bit. Y'all don't have no money to really accomplish nothing, so all you're gonna do is protest for a few days, and then it's gonna end. Then the insurance people are making money. The financial institutions that are loaning or giving them the bonds are making money. Why would there ever be a reason to stop? It's like I go back to that process consulting thing with me and John. If you have a metric in place on your help desk that says the amount of tickets you close is gonna affect your bonus, well then you're gonna get off the phone quick. All right, I hope that helped you. Bye, and click. You know what I'm saying? So you have to have controls in place that's gonna create certain behavior, certain action. And maybe instead of it coming out of these bonds and stuff to pay for all of these settlements and things, it come out of the police retirement fund. I bet you everybody will fight each other internally and say, hey, don't do that, because that's gonna come out of my fund too and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? We just need to have the right controls in place from a government perspective. And this is where it's going to go back to your local leaders voting to get them in place to make the changes for certain things that will show tangible results.
Thank you very much, Beyond. Lamont, I want you to go in because I see it coming on your lips. Come on, brother.
Only thing that I have to go back to Brother Chris and what he was talking about earlier.
Hold on. He ain't your brother. He a Kappa, bro. So you gotta be very careful.
Okay. Mr. Christian, how about that? The issue that I had while I was watching it, I'm sitting there and I'm anxious. I'm like, okay, somebody about to jump in, somebody about to get him out the way. I was looking for his colleagues, my colleagues, the police officers, to do something to get that man off his neck. Not only that, off his back. Not only that, let go of his legs. He's already detained. He's already handcuffed. Why are you all doing this? It was a complete letdown, a disgrace. I'm outraged about that because it did not have to happen. It's going to take. I wasn't looking for the citizens to do it because like the brother said, yeah, you would have got arrested. You don't know if you would have lived or not. You are completely right on that. However, but I was looking for the protection, the guidance, the shield, and the assistance of his fellow colleagues, my fellow colleagues, and it didn't happen. And with that being said, it's unbelievable. And to this right now, I'm getting emotional about it because I can honestly say that could have been my brother.
Right, it could have been any
of us.
Lamont, let me get a little question though. Real quick question. Okay, go on.
No, go ahead.
But my question, Lamont, is you're an officer and I'm not, and no one else here is. And this isn't against you, I'm not coming at you. But as an officer, what what's up with this policy that they handcuffed a dead guy? What is that shit? The guy's obviously dead. He's been shot or beat the hell up. He's done. We've seen it. We've seen it on video. What is that? What police? Why does police policy? It's insult to injury. The guy's dead. The guy's shot dead, bloody all over the street, holes in him, but they still handcuff him.
Yeah.
What is that? That to me, how do I relate to somebody who would do that to a human being and you know he's dead? You didn't help him. You saw him choking out. You're talking to your colleagues as the guy's bleeding out. It's not you, Lamont, because my cousin's an officer at Sunrise. You know, I have family that's military. It's not for me. But, you know, what is that? Like, that's...
Again, it's the system. It's not their policy. You know what I'm saying? And
bad training, I guess. And you spoke to that, Lamont. So maybe that's it.
That's across the board. Even when the guy's not dead, once they're shot, the first thing you do is cuff them. I've seen it. I've never seen it done, to be honest with you. And knowing that you're already going to be, you know, your breath is already going to be strained because you're shot. And then to put your hands behind your back again, on top of that, you know, that's I don't know. That's always been strange to me too, Max. But that's why.
And answer the question. I did ask it for not to quote from, but a genuine question.
What I know, I'm speaking from DC because that's where I work. We're taught and trained that you handcuff for officer safety first. To make sure the scene is secure. Once the scene is secure, we get medical personnel in there. And if at that time they request to remove the handcuffs to get access to the prisoner or to the patient at that time, then we will take off the handcuffs. But it's just departmental training. I have no reason why they do it. This is what we are trained, and this is what we have to abide by and adhere to.
Thank you very much, Lamont. Christian, hit it.
Yeah, I just want to, when we're talking about, I think we talked about some action items. I know we were talking about voting. Definitely make sure you vote, particularly in November. It's very critical that this activation turns into influence at the polls, and that our voice is heard. But for me, I want to encourage everybody here and everybody who's listening on YouTube, whatever media outlet you're consuming this on, run for office. Run for office. Be a part, because policy reform is where change happens. Right. Run. Doesn't matter if you lose. You need your rhetoric and your message to be a part of the dialogue, right?
Right.
If you can galvanize and you strike the right chord and you get momentum and you get some infrastructure around you and some dollars and cents, all the better. But if nothing else, get your names on the ballot, right? And run and have the message that you want to convey, the America that you want to see, the America that you deserve, the America that your neighbor deserves, your family deserves, your friend deserves. That America, in terms of the way that you want to see it, the way that you want to mold it in alignment with your values and the values that you think that every American should have access to, run for office. Run. And I'm not saying this. I know President Obama has really tried to crystallize this message, and I really think it's important. But right now, there's been an acknowledgement, right? And right now, there's an energy and there's a movement. And the way that you take advantage of that energy and that movement, the next step is representation. And then the following step after that, again, is policy reform, right? Policy is the way that you hold people accountable for their actions in this country, one way or the other, right? Mm-hmm. And so to the point that I think we were all kind of acknowledging ourselves, and I think America is acknowledging right now, is something's wrong. This is broken. And look, across the country, this is what's going on right now. There's nothing else going on. There's no finals. There's no NBA finals. There's no baseball being played, right?
Right.
There's nothing. This is what's going on. You understand what I'm saying? This has everybody's attention, and I encourage you. You know, it doesn't have to be president. It doesn't have to be congressman. It doesn't have to be at the federal level. It doesn't have to be mayor. Be a part of your county. Get on the commission. Join your HOA. But be in the game.
Right.
For all of us, and this includes myself, It's easy to have a point of view from the cheap seats. It's different to have a point of view on the sidelines. It's best to have a point of view on the field.
Right.
And that's where I think we ought to get to. And again, don't worry about losing. There is no embarrassment in losing if your whole intention, again, is to put your message in the wind, right? And to have some sort of influence, right? There is no shame in that. So don't have to worry about, man, I looked like an idiot because I didn't run. It's fine. It doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter. I'm telling you guys, it doesn't matter. Because you guys got to realize that after the Emancipation Proclamation, right? I'm sorry, after the Civil War, not the Emancipation Proclamation, it's the Civil War. Yeah, which is the Emancipation Proclamation. Stay with me, guys. I'm going to this thing kind of chronologically.
We're going to close up shortly, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. We had more representation in terms of African-American minorities in Congress and across the country than in any other time in United States history, including today. So think about that. We emancipate. We have more people at the as county commissioners. We have more attorneys. We have more judges. We have more congressmen. We have more people in the state legislature in terms of people of color than in any other point in American history, right? We got to get back to that. And this, I think, is a watershed moment. This is the, look, guys, let's be clear about something. This is one of the darkest weeks in modern American history.
Absolutely.
Based upon those factors that I mentioned at the top, right? When you're talking about the economic plight of the country, you're talking about COVID-19, the medical implications, you're talking about not having a vaccine, you're talking about Ahmaud Arbery just a week ago, right? And now we're talking about this and the country explodes and buildings are being burned. I live in Washington, D.C. proper. Lamont, I know you've probably been around. I don't know if you guys have been around. Downtown D.C. is boarded up.
It's a disaster.
It's like look, I was in Hurricane Katrina. That's how I ended up in Washington, D.C. I know as well as anyone like what mass destruction looks like at scale. I'm telling you guys, if you guys get an opportunity, you can take a ride. There's graffiti everywhere. That church is burned down next to the White House. Lamont, tell me if I'm not. Buildings are burned. Buildings are boarded up from Massachusetts Avenue all the way to Independence Street, from 18th all the way to 7th, all over. I mean, it looks like
Fallout 3.
It looks like a bomb went off. I'm not exaggerating with that. I live in Navy Yard. All I hear all night are sirens and helicopters. Like, this is a very dark moment that you're going to be talking about with your children for the next 20 years, in the same way we talked about Katrina, in the same way that we talked about This is going up. This is going up in the annals of history. But let's capitalize on it and let's be constructive about it. I think that's the next step. So encourage your friends. Your friends in the barbershop, your friends on the phone with you, they on Facebook, and they saying, man, I think I might want to run. Encourage them. Give them $5. It doesn't matter. Push them. Push them. And that's my final word, gentlemen. Thank you for listening.
I'm gonna end it here. I'm gonna end it right now. This is the first episode of many. We're gonna have topics. Education is next, followed by real estate, followed by medicinal marijuana. We're going to talk about everything. And the one thing that I got to say is I love you guys. So please wave to the crowd and say thank you very much for listening, because the feedback that I've got on my phone.
Thank you for my brothers here too.
So
thank you, brother.
Thanks for indulging me, gentlemen. I appreciate you listening to me. Thanks for the invite.
Absolutely. I can't remember anything. I went to FSU in the 90s.
To all my hosts, Doug. Hold on. To all my hosts, to all my guests. What were you saying, Beyond?
No, I see him.
I can't add him in, but we're going to talk about that later. Okay. So what we're going to do is, I love you guys. I'm going to end the broadcast, and we're going to continue this conversation behind the scenes. And if you want to be behind the scenes, you got to pay to get in. So holla, say everybody, peace out, and next time, coffee for your soul.
One love.
Outro music.
Right.